ているよ
Hello and welcome to another episode of That Anime Pod, the seasonal anime recap show brought to you by That Nerdy Site. I'm your host, Christian Puente, aka Pixel Brave. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Pixel Brave for any news about what I'm watching or anything that I'm contributing with That Nerdy Site. You can follow the show on Twitter at That Anime Pod for any updates on what I'm watching as well. And of course, follow the main site, That Nerdy Site, on Twitter at That Nerdy Site. If you'd like to participate in our Patreon, you can find us on patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Thanks again for joining me this week. Now let's recap some anime. So we're nearing the end of the winter 2020 season. We're kind of like, for all of the season, about like 75% of the way. We're in the last 3 or 4 episodes for a lot of these shows. So let's kind of go over a few of them that I'm still watching right now. Of course, like one of the breakout ones is Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. The film club finally debuted their animation that they've been working on under the clientage of the robotics club. And it was really cool to finally see all the hard work come together. And it was cool to see that Mizusaki's parents, when they did finally find out, I thought this was going to be like something that went on through the rest of the show, that they would never know that she joined a club to make anime. But yeah, like it happened like pretty early on after all. And I was pretty delighted to see that, yeah, that they were pretty cool with it, that they had their doubts, but that they, seeing the work that they had done together, that they were really impressed after all. And yeah, they kind of supported it. The show is going on to the new project. They have a new kind of project that they're doing in collaboration with the city's restoration committee. One of the attendees that saw their robotics anime mecha show was just a big fan, and so Kanemori saw an opportunity there, and so now they're working with the restoration committee for the city to create kind of a new anime production that will maybe get people interested in the city and, you know, its tourist attractions and its markets and stuff like that. So it's but the kind of hiccup going on is that Asakusa is having a lot of hard time focusing and is kind of more interested in thinking of new ideas rather than fleshing out the new singular idea that they're actually being contracted for. So we will see how that pans out. Still watching My Hero Academia, of course. It's well on into the school festival arc. The class is, they're getting ready for the big performance. In case I didn't bring this up before, they're putting on a musical performance, and everyone's getting involved, dancing and special effects, and the musician part of it too. And yeah, I thought that we'd get a bit more in-depth look at what that process like, the creative process of them coming together as a band, but that all came together pretty seamlessly. And most of the preparations has been like going on through like montages and stuff. And I guess the new focus in this arc is like the looming threat, which is the new antagonist of this mini arc is the villain Gentle Criminal, who is like vigilante. And I think I brought this up last time, that he kind of brings social awareness to certain injustices by doing crimes. And so his new goal with his sidekick La Bravia is to infiltrate the school festival. And so we've just seen a bit more backstory on them. And where we left off in the anime is that they're about to infiltrate, and Deku finds them and kind of stops them. Actually, he's currently in the process of stopping them. It's kind of left on a cliffhanger on if he can finally beat them before they make their way to the school. Deku has a new form of gauntlet that lets him shoot wind projectiles, and so that's kind of being test run right now. And so, yeah, it's the cliffhanger left off there, and we'll see where that leaves off next time. Also, to add just a little something to that, the school is like on a high alert. So, like, even if it's a false alarm, any whiff at all of there being possible trouble at the school is going to instantly close down the festival. So that's like why Deku is like so... He's just really trying his best to get them to stop before they get to the school, because even if he can kind of stop them, but near the school, if there's any word at all that they're on their way there, then yeah, that ruins everything. All the hard work. Oh, that's his concerns. Is like all the hard work that the classmates put together, and that Aries is really looking forward to going to go visit, and so it's kind of like a lot of emotional stakes. Yeah. And the last one I'm going to touch on for right now is 22/7. That's the idol anime. It finally really hit its stride, and I was so worried about where this was going. And it's still kind of early in this one, in this show. All these other shows are kind of ending, but this one started late, so it's still in its first 4-ish episodes. Miyu, the main character, is reluctantly part of this performance group, and is kind of coming over personal anxieties. And I didn't know if that was going to be just the focus for all of the season, but I was happy to see that no, we kind of finished off her arc when the group had to finally do their debut performance for an audience, and she kind of came in clutch. The audio system went berserk, and so she found a piano and like used her musical ability to carry the show through its completion. And after that, though, the following episode was a photo shoot episode that centered all around a different character named Sakura. And from what I can tell for the preview of the next episode is that we're getting another focused episode around a different character. So I kind of like that after we finished getting our main little arc with Miyu, that yeah, we're gonna jump from character to character, and that's kind of like the kind of format that I'm really a fan of. Is these mini, not deep dives, but these small focused stories on individual characters and just what they're dealing with, and so that looks like this is going to be the format for the show. So I'm excited to see, just keep going down the line and just meeting the rest of the characters and seeing what their backstories are, because I just find it all really interesting. So for a little bit of industry news, Konosuba had a movie that released this year, and unfortunately I was not able to watch it. But the cool news is that it's coming out to Crunchyroll. A lot of times when there's an anime movie and it comes to theaters, then if you miss it, you can't catch it until it comes to major streaming sites later, or until it comes to Blu-ray. But fortunately with this, it looks like we're getting a Crunchyroll debut. So that's really cool. I'm really excited that myself, who missed it, as well as anyone else who was interested in Konosuba, is going to get a chance to see it just streaming on our typical anime platform. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is cool when an anime movie like, for example, Mewtwo's Revenge or something like that will come to Netflix, but sometimes there's much more of a wait for those bigger platforms, and so it's just really cool. By the way, to kind of tie off that news, it's coming to Crunchyroll on March 25th. That's the Japanese dub, and for the English dub, that will get released on Crunchyroll in April later this year. So yeah, if you're a fan of Konosuba, if you're not familiar with Konosuba, the long and short of it is that someone from Japan, this young high school age student, dies and gets reincarnated into kind of a video game, if you imagine kind of a Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, like a medieval kind of vibe, but with monsters and magic. And he gets revived, he gets reborn there, and just has misadventures with these new comrades that he gets. And I kind of make the analogy that this anime is very much like the Always Sunny in Philadelphia of anime, in that it's just about shitty things happening to shitty people. Even though he's our protagonist, he's just really like he's only interested in himself, and he really doesn't even want to have comrades, because every time he thinks that he'll meet someone that's going to help his cause, they ended up like just being useless and causing more harm than good. But he kind of can't get rid of them, and so it's just this ragtag group of adventurers, and they are trying to become better adventurers, but their personalities get in the way of themselves, much like I said, in Always Sunny. So yeah, I'm curious to see what the movie storyline is going to be, because I wanted to go into it blind. I knew that the movie had come out, and I was unable to go see the screening, but I still not familiar with what the plot's going to be. But to know that it's coming right around the corner, right to a very familiar social platform, I mean streaming platform, Crunchyroll. That's awesome. So excited for that, and hope to see much more anime releases soon. Okay, so for your topic of the week, we're talking the My Hero Academia film Heroes Rising. This is kind of a spoiler cast, but hey, no need to pause quite yet. I will just give a few spoiler-free thoughts on the film, and then I'll let you know with enough time when the actual spoiler cast section will begin. But yeah, I recently came back from PAX in Boston, and while I was out there, they were showing the new My Hero Academia movie, and I had thought that it was only going to show that week, but hey, the kind of good news is that it looks like some places are still showing it. So if you haven't seen it after this spoiler, like this spoiler-free section, and you want to check it out, like, hey, look it up because it might be playing there too. But yeah, I caught it while I was out there, and I really enjoyed it. It definitely elevated the stakes compared to the first movie, which I believe was called Two Heroes. You saw a lot more involvement with Class 1A, whereas literally in the first movie, some of them weren't even there. They were just reacting to what was going on screen. Like they'd be watching TV from home and realizing, oh, this is what's going on over here where the real story is happening. But all of Class 1A is here, and so it was really cool to really see them fully engaged with the story this time. The animation was cool, just as always, and the main villain in this, his name is Nine, and again, I don't want to go too far into spoilers, but he is very familiar to All for One and in his abilities, and so it was really cool seeing, because we never actually got to see in the show a fight between All for One and Deku. The main fight was between All for One and All Might, and so we never really got to see that kind of fight, and so this was kind of a nice cool teaser for what that might be, if that ever does happen. I have no idea if we'll ever get a fight like that. But yeah, it was really cool to check out. It was a nice way to start the week before PAX officially started. Was getting to see, because these are really cool characters. I was late to My Hero Academia, but now that I'm into it, I'm fully into it. I love all the characters, and so it's a really nice treat to get able to sit and enjoy on the big screen, seeing these heroes doing their thing. And again, a big difference between this and even from the show is that every character like really gets a cool moment to shine. Even before the action starts, you see that they're all really embracing how their powers can be helpful, not even in just villain situations, but in everyday helping out in small ways, the daily lives of the community around them. And so it's really cool. The animation was nice. The music was cool. Great chance to see these great heroes on the big screen. I want to say though this, I cannot believe, I'm not going to go into detail here, but there are, just so you know, there are moments in here in this film that do spoil the manga. And so I ended up being spoiled on some things that I'm caught up on the anime, but I don't read the manga. And there were definitely moments in this movie that made me feel like, wait, I feel like I was not supposed to know this yet. So that is the only thing that I'll let you know, is that if you're really trying to go completely blind and not have even any hints for what's going to happen in future arcs, then yeah, maybe don't watch this yet. But if you don't mind like a small kind of spoiler on what might be happening in future arcs, then yeah, check out this movie. I'm just letting you know that one thing. And actually, like, I can kind of mention this, is that, you know what, better be safe side. Let me just say we're gonna start the spoiler cast section now. I'm gonna go into full spoilers. Okay, if you haven't seen the film, I highly recommend it. If you have seen it, then let's get ready to talk about it. But yeah, do check it out, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, it's really tricky holding back on those spoiler-free talk sections. But what I was gonna mention briefly though, is that the new gauntlets that Deku has in the anime, he just got those this weekend, whereas I saw the film last weekend, and in the film he already had these gauntlets, and so I was really kind of confused. I was like, wait, what is this new stuff that Deku's wearing? What are these new gloves that are letting him do these new attacks that I was not familiar with. Because, like I said, I watched the anime and it hadn't, these new gauntlets hadn't showed up in the anime yet. So that's a small spoiler. And even though, oh, actually, so we're in the spoiler cast section. So if you've seen the movie, you know, it's full spoilers again. But to find out that the Doctor is kind of working with All for One really kind of pissed me off. I was like, wait, I feel like I wasn't supposed to know that. So I'm on YouTube a lot, and I had seen thumbnails of the Doctor showing up again, and so I kind of figured he would be showing up in some way. But this anime, in the movie, they pretty much straight up say like, oh yeah, like this dude, he does experiments, and he's a really bad guy. But like, I was like, no, why? We haven't seen him since like the first episode of the first season, and so for them to kind of give out that hint that hey, there's really a lot more to this guy than we know before. It's like, oh, I didn't think I would. Like, it's kind of disappointing, but all things considered, it was still like, I mean, it doesn't take much from the movie. It just kind of like, oh, like it kind of got me though. So yeah, I'm curious to find out if anyone out there was also only watching the anime and so was feeling that they got spoiled on that too. But yeah, to kind of go over a brief synopsis of the film, you know, the Class 1A, they're kind of running a hero agency on Naboo Island, which, by the way, is such a fun little Easter egg. For those who don't know, the creator of My Hero Academia is a big Star Wars fan and always puts little Easter eggs. Like one of in the first episode of the whole series, like there's a Tatooine station. Ida, when he fights Stain, that's in Hosu City, which is a reference to Hoth, Hosu and Hoth. And right here in the movie, we get Naboo Island, which is like a play on of the word of like planet Naboo from the Phantom Menace movies. So that's a fun little Easter egg there if you notice that. But yeah, so they're on Naboo Island and they're taking care of like the everyday worries of the citizens there. There's not supposed to be any villains there, so they're really there to be of service in any other way, whether that's using their powers to create energy or to transport people from place to place or to use their strength in any kind of way. It's just kind of meant as an exercise for them to use their quirks in everyday ways instead of fighting villains. But that can only last for so long because Nine and his crew show up. Nine is a new villain for this movie, and he looks to be working under All for One, and he's called Nine because he has 9 quirks. I don't know if I can name them all. I know the ones he uses the most is like the air solidifying one. He can create dragons, and oh man, those are like the main 2 ones he's always using. I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head. But again, it has been about like a week and a half, and since I've seen it. Which means I should probably go check it out again. But but he also has a crew with him. He has Slice, who uses, it looks like kind of a hedgehog thing or a porcupine thing, where she has hair and will throw out like kind of these sharp needles out. There's also Mummy, who can wrap things up and then manipulate them once they're wrapped up like a mummy. And we also have, lastly, Chimera, which is like a giant Hulk of a dude who has like a head of a wolf. And I think he has talons. Man, I haven't. Oh, this is embarrassing that I can't remember exactly, but I know he's a mixture of different creatures, which is what a chimera is. And yeah, so they're on Naboo Island in particular because they're trying to get a hold of this young boy named Katsuma, who has a sister named Maharo, and the 2 of them are children of this. I was about to say scientist, but I don't even think he's that. They're both being sought out because Katsuma has a special quirk called cell activation, and the thing that Nine is trying to do is steal that quirk. Well, I guess that's one of his abilities, is he can steal quirks, but he can only hold up to 9. And so he's trying to get Katsuma's cell activation quirk, because what happens is that you find out once they arrive on the island and start having battles with the heroes, is that if he pushes himself too hard, he will become injured and incapacitated. And that's the only way that the heroes escape the first time, is that they fight him to a point where he can't fight anymore, and so the villains retreat momentarily, and so it gives the heroes kind of a chance to like recollect. And that's kind of where they find out, like, oh, he's probably coming after this kid for his power. So that's kind of like the main plot. The heroes come up with a new defense kind of strategy and do their best to protect the island, evacuate the citizens, and try to incapacitate Nine so that they can detain him. And it's just like, as I'm saying it, I'm feeling so tense because it is a scary scene when you see how beat they get, and also when you see how far they have to push themselves in the battle against Nine and his crew. The teams kind of get split up in their different responsibilities, but it is really cool seeing them like go all out. We've obviously have some really cool moments in the anime series where we're in the sports tournament or against Stain or any other villains, especially there's a lot of showcasing of powers at the training camp. But I don't know if it's just the fact that it's a film or that it's a small contained story where they all are just like, you know, by circumstances of the story have to be like just isolated and all together. But like one thing or another, like it results in some really great battles where their powers are pushed to the limits and their character is pushed to the limits. And it's just really kind of rewarding seeing that they do get to shine and that they all really get to show off that plus ultra going beyond mentality. In the sports festival, like I think that's where we would want to see it the most, but I think a lot of those battles, half of them are serious and the other ones and the other half are kind of like playful. But in this film, there's so many stakes because they are on their own. There's no heroes coming for them. I mean, we have a new character, a new hero called Hawks, I think, and he does kind of get an SOS from them, and he does dispatch villains. I mean, he does dispatch heroes to go rescue them, but for all they know, that no one's coming for them. You know, we're seeing them because we're watching the film, and so we get that benefit. But as far as they know, there might be nobody coming for them, and so they really do. For them, it really is kind of like a life or death battle, and to see them really push themselves, it's just like, oh man, it gives me joy. I feel, you know, so proud for them, and I did get pretty emotional during the screening, and we get like, I mean, and how could you not? Because it also but also we get to revisit the song Might Plus You, which was first introduced in the anime. That's where they took You Say Run and gave it lyrics along with like kind of a new instrumental that feels a lot more like a ballad, I think. I'm not very musical, so I'm like, that's the word that comes to mind. I think it's kind of like a ballad, but yeah, like they use Might Plus You, the song, to really showcase the intensity of the final match. Again, the heroes come up with a new plan to take on the villains after they, you know, strategize again. And it works for the most part, except against Nine. Nine is honestly just way too strong and way too overpowered for them. And the only way that Deku, in his infinite wisdom, decides that they can finally beat Nine is if he passes on his quirk, you know, one for all, to Bakugo as well. And the two of them together take out Nine. And that fight scene... Okay, I'm going to say two things about the fight scene. One, it is very cool. Two, it's very hard to follow. But what still makes it so... What helps elevate it, though, is the fact that they include Might Plus You, which is a remix of the iconic You Say Run. The Sakuga, the animation of it all was like just really cool to watch while having the song in the background and just knowing what it means. And they're even saying it amongst each other. It's like, hey, Bakugo's telling Deku, like, hey, you know this means like your dream is over, right? Like after all this. And like, but Deku's fine with that because he's always been about saving people first. And if that means that he has to give up his quirk, then like that's all that matters, is that it means he can help people out. That final fight was like really just special. But I will say that my one problem with it is that sometimes the way it was animated, it was not very... It got so stylized that they would go in a particular direction, in a particular different art direction with the animation that did make some scenes a little hard to follow. So that's my one critique of it. Again, I don't know if I was just kind of caught in the moment. I definitely am looking forward to watching it again soon. So hopefully on my second rewatch or on my second watch, I can kind of make out a bit better what's going on. But yeah, during my first watch, it was kind of confusing. Like, wait, who's going where? Who's doing this and that? That was my only little critique of it is that I could tell it was beautiful. I could tell it was awesome. I could tell that, through all the particle effects and the special animation and slow motion and stuff, I knew I was looking at something cool, but at the same time, sometimes I didn't know what I was watching. So that's my one little ding against the film, is that last scene was a little difficult to follow. But other than that, it was a fantastic film. My particular favorite moment was all the heroes implementing their strategy, and like I said, really getting to see them push themselves beyond anything we've seen them do in the anime. And it was just such a delight to watch. And even characters that I cannot stand. When I say characters, I'm just trying to be nice. I just really mean one. Mineta, I cannot stand Mineta. He's just the worst. But even seeing him go all out was finally, I not even redemption, but just you at least showed up. Thank you for at least doing more than thank you for at least exceeding my expectations, I guess. And yeah, that was kind of my favorite moments there. Not Mineta, but just in general, getting to see in that last final push before we see the Deku and Bakugo fight. Seeing Aoyama and Ochaku and everyone else come together, and in the cave scene as well. Just it was those were probably my most favorite moments from the film. But yeah, those are some of my favorite moments. Unfortunately, in the story, as we see, it needed to resolve things in a way that the series could keep going. So they had Bakugo forget that he'd been able to borrow All for One. He forgot that he was passed on One for All, and also it turns out that Deku didn't pass on the quirk permanently. That it was more of a borrowing kind of thing. From what I'm understanding, because I did kind of brush up a little bit on the wiki, I think that apparently the spirits of the previous One for All members kind of allowed this temporary passing. So it was kind of a temporary borrowing kind of power instead of the final, this is it for reals for good, permanent passing. So I would have been really interested to see if we had kind of an Elseworld kind of story where the movies go in one direction and the anime goes in a different one. In Dragon Ball Z, there's in the films, there's all these standalone villains, and it kind of allows for this interesting multiverse where Goku will fight Frieza's brother, where they will fight Broly and Garlic Jr. and in the anime, you might get hints at that, but it's not the same. Where it's there's never any mention of Frieza's brother. There's never Garlic Jr. shows up, but that's the only kind of thing where you see something similar to acknowledging movie as canon. Because usually those things are separate. In Dragon Ball Z, they never talk about Broly or anything like that. And so I would have been interested to see if in the My Hero movies had continued with that kind of storyline. But it looks to make them a bit more cohesive, yeah, they were no, the power was temporary and Bakugo forgot all about it. But yeah, that was the My Heroes Rising movie, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to even more. Back to the rest of the show. For the Culture Corner, I wanted to talk about the revitalization committees that are happening in Japan. I mentioned, I got this idea from the Eizouken episode that I mentioned earlier, how Kanamori is partnering the Film and Anime Club with this committee that is dedicated to kind of bring back business to the city and tourism to the city. And that's actually kind of a theme that is starting to show up a bit more in anime, and it's reflecting a real struggle that's going on as more and more of the population finds itself in the bigger cities. These more rural areas, they don't have the population that they used to have, and the youth is moving out. And then also you pair that with the fact that people are getting married much later, having kids much later, or deciding not to have kids. And so there's this whole population crisis going on that is definitely affecting rural areas. And so there's kind of this new, I guess I could call it a wave. I don't know if I'm being too poetic there, but there's definitely a new movement in these rural areas to try to tackle this problem by, it's kind of in the name, revitalization committee, getting a group of maybe not seniors specifically in age, but people who are veterans of the town who are familiar with like what makes the town special, and kind of putting their heads together on how to revitalize an interest, whether it's strengthening the appeal in tourism or in the just the overall economy by like revitalizing the way that the stores do business or things like that. It's a real thing going on that, like I said, you are seeing it. These storylines appear not only in anime, but I mean, that's the point, is that it's this theme is showing up in anime because it's a real thing going on. And so, yeah, I just wanted to shed a little light on it, that this, if you wanted to see something a bit more like this, there's an anime I really recommend called Sakura Quest, which is completely about that. It's about a character who is from Tokyo but is having trouble finding a job and accidentally gets hired by one of these rural areas to be like kind of the mascot, if you will, of their revitalization committee. They meant to hire someone else, like an old celebrity, but the name was similar to our main character, and so they accidentally hired her. And yeah, the whole anime is just about them banding together as a town and finding what makes the town special and reaching out and getting new tourists and younger people interested in the town and visiting it. That way, the economy there can recover. So yeah, it's a real issue going on. If you want to look it up, check it out. I just wanted to give a little spotlight on that in this culture corner. No Q&A this week. I'm gonna do a little bit better. I'm gonna see if I can put out the notice a bit sooner on these things for Q&A, because I definitely want to hear more of y'all's thoughts. And actually, I might just be starting to put questions myself out and putting y'all's answers here instead of trying to, maybe it's too open-ended to say, hey, ask me stuff about anime. Maybe I should just put this foot forward and ask you guys stuff about anime. So because I definitely want to fill out the show a bit more with really the point of the show is to get to know you. So I will probably put more posts out in the coming weeks. And with that, we wrapped up the show. I want to thank Grimecraft again for lending us track Lonely Rolling Star Remix in cooperation with Game Chops. That's it for this week of the Anime Pod. Again, don't forget to find me on all the social. Me personally on Twitter at PixelBrave, the show here at the Anime Pod, and of course our great platform, That Nerdy Site, the website that makes this all possible, on Twitter at That Nerdy Site. Thank you guys for checking this out, and catch you guys next time. Bye.